could punch, run 60 feet, or actually disengage and run 30, and then cast another spell from 30 feet away. As the new warrior of the Mystic Arts monks, that is something that you definitely could do. It's kind of crazy, actually, how strong when I was reading over the subclass it feels. And the more I read it, the more I just felt like they might have pushed it a little bit too far. The UA describes the new monk as warriors of the mystic arts wield magic to supplement their martial skill. They harness their supernatural focus to enhance their magical and physical abilities. It's a really small blurb, but honestly, that just sounds like every other monk that you've. That's kind of like their whole fantasy, right? Is they're able to channel the inner abilities of themselves, their key or now their focus, and push beyond the limits of normal people. So I don't really see a lot of flavor coming across, at least that small description. I'm hoping they update that to kind of give it a better identity. But ultimately, what this new monk is a class that lets you cast spells from the sorcerer spell list. Now, it's not a half caster, it's more in line with like the Eldritch Knight. Monks being able to cast spells isn't something new. They've been able to do that for a while. They usually would have to trade in one of their focus points or key points to cast those spells. They're built into the subclass itself. But what makes this subclass a little more compelling and possibly unique is that they get the spellcasting feature when the monk gets its subclass. Right away at level 3, when they get the spellcast, they get to choose 2 sorcerer cantrip and 3 level 1 spells. Every spell they get will be from the sorcerer spell list. If we take a look at this chart that they provide in the UA, you'll be able to see their progression. It kind of does cap out at level 4, which isn't too exciting, but this is on a monk. You gain a level in monk, you're able to swap out one of your spells. Probably won't change your spells, honestly, that often. Most of your spells will possibly come from things that will help you stay alive in combat because you are a monk. Survivability has always been an issue with monk because of unarmed defense and having to spread out your ability scores across multiple different abilities. You're kind of sacrificing on HP or sacrificing on your AC. So being able to just take shield and cast that to stay alive when you're in combat is great. Level 6, we get 2 different features. The first one is Mystic Focus, which allows us to convert our focus points into spell slot. This could be really powerful. I feel like they recognize that because they in the UA they put a chart that shows, how many focus points you can convert into spell slots, and they actually put even a minimum level on what you need to be in order to convert these. Like just really quick math, the monk looks really strong here, mostly because we get access to spells like shield to improve our survivability. We right off the bat, we'll get our 3 level 1 spell slots. We're able to convert, our 6 focus points back into those level 1 spell slots to get 3 more castings of shield. And even using our uncanny metabolism when we start initiative again, we're going to regain all our focus points that we can convert right back into spell slots to cast more shield. So just being able to cast that like 9 times plus in a session means that our monk, who is kind of frail with our D8 and our kind of middling constitution, is now able to just survive in melee a lot better, right? And we don't even forget that we have deflect attacks to reduce any of the damage without needing to use a focus point. So if anything even gets past our shield, we can reduce that damage at least once per round as a reaction. And that's like the defensive option here, at least in my eyes, right? Because the other part is Mystic Fighting, which allows us to replace one of our attacks with a casting of a cantrip, as long as the cantrip is one. The thing here is that cantrips scale at levels 5, 11, and 17. So we're even though the 2024 monk got a boost in their damage die for unarmed strikes, being able to just replace one of our unarmed strikes in exchange for a cantrip that will just begin to outclass one of our punches is kind of crazy. And even if we didn't, like, let's say we didn't convert our focus points into spell slots. We kept those, right? We punch, we cast something like Firebolt at higher levels. We're getting our 2d10, or even the Sorcerer's Burst. If we for some reason we were hoping to kind of use one of those exploding die with a new cantrip, right? We could still spend our focus point for Flurry of Blows and deal even more damage. It's the ceiling and the floor for the monk just kind of really moved entirely, and I feel like it's beginning to outpace other martials now. Obviously, not like full spellcasters because of all the utility they get, but I find it hard now to make a case for other marshals to keep pace with the damage output from this. Going one step further, at level 11, we get centered focus that lets us get advantage on our concentration saving throws if we spend a focus point to do something like flurry of blows, patient defense, or step of the wind. Like our hallmark monk abilities. On top of spell casting, if we need to cast something with concentration like Cloud of Daggers, pop that up, and then we use these other abilities to maintain and get advantage on our concentration, it looks really strong. And we can actually take this one step further because with this subclass, we get the spell casting feature, which now allows us to participate in circle casting. And as a secondary caster, we can maintain concentration on one of our party members' spell slots. Like some or spells, if they're a full caster and they have, a really high level spell, like or maybe not even high level, like they're just going to cast banishment on something to remove like a big threat in the fight. We can maintain that concentration and not feel like we're sacrificing too much of ourselves. As a DM, when the circle casting came out, I was like talking to my players now, like it's really hard to make the case be a martial and not have the spell casting feature because circle casting is so strong. And being able to get the spell casting feature on the monk, and this being like a really strong monk also, it's really strong if you're like at a table that loves to optimize. This is pretty much the dream of what you want. Ultimately, though, the capstone ability, it wasn't too exciting to me. At level 17, you're able to swap out one or two of your attacks to be able to cast a level 1 or level 2 sorcerer spell. At level 17, being able to cast a level 1 or level 2 spell is not exciting. It does let you break the rules about one spell slot per turn, though, and I'm sure someone will probably be able to find a way to break that, especially if you're allowing like homebrew content at your table. There might be some shenanigans that could be put in there, but I think this subclass is also, I think it's really strong, right? Like imagine casting 9 silvery barbs as a monk.